Sukumar. Sukumar Maharaj is Swami Sarvadevanaji used to call him. Sukumar. And Maharaj, hey Maharaj. And he goes, you know just what happened. Nah, Maharaj, what happened? And so you see, I was sitting in my, Swami Shraddhanand saying, I was sitting in my bed doing japam, sitting upright. And as I was doing japam, what started happening? The walls behind me started vibrating with japam. The bed below me started vibrating with japam. The pillow started vibrating with japam. And he said, I was so happy. I started doing my japam. But then, what happened was, then the body had to go to the bathroom. What to do? I didn't want to create this disharmony. I didn't want to break it up. So then I go to the wall. I say, Mr. Wall, you keep saying japam. Please excuse this body. It has to go to the bathroom. Mr. Pillow, you keep saying japam. Please excuse this body. It has to go to the bathroom. Mr. Bed, please excuse this body. It has to go to the bathroom. And then he said the body got up, and then it went to the bathroom. And then when it came back, he said to his delight, he said everything was still vibrating with the mantra. So then he got back, sat on his bed, and like an orchestra, everything was playing their tune, and everything was in tune. And he just sat there in japam. It was such a sort of like the way he said it, it just, he used to see, remember I talked about in puja, everything is consciousness, the wall is consciousness, we're saying something to the door, oh, please don't give any obstacles, allow any obstacles, negative vibrations to come in. He saw the deities of all, everything living to him. So that was Swami Shraddhanand Maharaj. Deshanand Maharaj. Okay, you saw him?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody disciple of his? Just curiosity? No. Okay. So, Swami.
My parents,
Your parents, okay.
and my brothers.
He was one of the presidents of our order. Also, very highly evolved. One of the more popular Swamis in our order. If you met him, you feel he's like a mother. During his time, the brahmacharis would come to see the president. He was the president. And then he would say joke after joke for 15 minutes. He'd have everybody laughing. Okay. Now, I just tell you one story. You used to go from Kolkata, the Bellumat, he'd go to Woodland Hospital. And from Woodland Hospital, he'd take a break and he'd go to a place called Gold Park, Institute of Culture. I was there that I saw him. And anybody know Swami Lokeshwaranandaji? Okay. So what happened is Lokeshwaranji Maharaj is also a big kingly sadhu. So he's the king of Gold Park. But I'll tell you, when Swami Bhuteshananji came, he's older, Swami Bhuteshananji. He came, he went into his room, he was lying in his bed. Now Swami Lokeshananji is about 85 years old at that time. And very, like Swami Sridharananda, a very big structure. So, and when you see him thinking, when he went into his room, he saw Swami Bhuteshananji lying on his bed, just lying there. Then Lokeshananji, such a heavy set person, got down on his knees. You hear this thump. He got down on his knees. And he's like, Maharaj, if you want to use my room, please use my room. It's a little bit bigger than this room. And Swami Bhuteshananji, he turns his head towards Lokeshananji. He's lying on his bed on his pillow. And then in this very motherly way, he says, no, my child, it's okay. And then he took his hand, and he started stroking his chin. Lokeshna. And all of a sudden you see, this is a mother, like an elderly mother, and he's 90 years old. Swami Bhuteshananji, Lokeshananji is 85. This huge grand presence all of a sudden becomes a little child. And he's just being like, sort of like being stroked like this. Esho, like this. He's, come. And he's just like a child. And first time I was saying, my God, how such a grand figure be in front of some saintly person, like we become such little children. And it doesn't matter. He is the king of Gold Park. If you ever met him, he was a universal personality, Swami Lokeswaranji. But in Bhuteshananji's presence, he became a small child. And you can only think sometimes when Swami Brahmananda, the president of our order, when he was in front of Swami Vivekananda, how he must have felt like. It gives you an idea of what their relationship was like, such deep love. That was Swami Bhuteshananji. Did Sri Ramakrishna try to prove what?
All religions.
Unity of all religions.
Unity of all religions. All religions are the same. That was the question. What his answer was no. So now this was 2 days ago. Someone I think was here asking, avatars. They come for a specific purpose, right? That was, I think, was it you that was telling me? I forget who. But avatars come for a specific purpose. Here he's answering. Did he come for the purpose of intending to prove all religions lead to the same source? He's saying Sri Ramakrishna did not intend to prove it. It's our interpretation. We see his life. He practiced all these various faiths. He was like tasting good food, whether it's Chinese food, Vietnamese food, Indian food. He liked good food. He just wanted to experience God in its various ways. But he's saying he did not intend to prove this statement, Ekam Sat Vipa Vahuda Vedanti, that truth is one. That wasn't his intention. We are interpreting his life that way. It's a very important point. I mean, avatars are mysteries, is what I'm trying to get a point at. They're a mystery. It's hard to understand a cause and effect relationship. So just something to put in the back of your mind there. Anybody's heard of him? Okay. He's in our Paris Swami. He was in Paris. He passed away probably in the 1980s. He had his Mahasamadhi then. He was actually from South India. I think he's from Tamil Nadu. And he's one of the great Swamis in our order also. And watch him. He's pure bhakti. In Bengali language, I know, like a Rashakola, when you squeeze him, you just see this ras coming out. It's very incredible. And he's here in Hollywood with Swami Swahanandaji.
For many of
Seshanandaji Maharaj. You saw him? Okay, but you heard about him. So, he's the last living monastic disciple of Holy Mother. He passed away in 1996 of November. And he came, I spoke about him I think yesterday a little bit. He came in India in 1947. And I don't think he saw an independent India. And here he never went back. So he was in the United States 50 plus years. He never went back to India. And the General Secretary of the Order would say, Maharaj, you should come back. Nowadays, every Swami comes and they go back within 2 years to India and they're going He felt, this is where the Divine Mother wants me. He had to struggle. Can you imagine an Indian coming in 1947 by himself in Portland, in this Portland area? He had to struggle with just trying to find food to eat, living in the apartment, preaching from an apartment room. And so eventually the Portland Center has been built. He was such a person of renunciation. It's not like the quality he would never accept anything. And then if you gave him money and said that I want you to offer money for this, he'd say no. He says when you give something, you give it completely to Thakur. Thakur will do whatever he wants with that. And he also said, he was like, and so his sweaters were torn. But he was very thrifty. Every penny he used to watch. And they used to say one thing now I remember. He had a direct line to Holy Mother. So whenever you asked him a question, anybody asked him a question, he would not answer immediately. And then they said it's like almost getting a phone. He'd get the phone, ask Mother, and then wait for the call to come in. And once he got a response, then he would answer you. He was such that type. He was so. The other thing I want to tell you, another thing I remember, one time there was a devotee, Dharmadas, an American person, asked him, Maharaj, if the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita is, you say the Gita backward, tyagi, 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 it means renounce, renounce, renounce. What is the meaning of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna? He was asked this question directly. Maharaj, without hesitation, said 3 words, 3 letters, Sha, Sha, Sa. Sha, Sha, Sha. And then, what does it mean? Endure, endure, endure. It said, also, adjust, adjust, adjust. So no matter what's happening, the meaning is try to adjust to all situations. And how do you adjust? He went on saying, it's like a thermostat. When the heat, when we get overheated, our heating, we react and we outburst. That's the time spiritual practices should be done. Spiritual practices are your cooling agent. It cools you down and you remain at that temperature. So adjust, adjust, adjust through your practices, and then you remain cool. This is Swami Assessment, George.
Mantra means a sacred word. In the beginning of the word was God, the word was God, the word became flesh. That word became flesh we call mantra change.
Swananda, not Swahananda, Swananda. He was known as a Gyani type, a really highly evolved Gyani. He was in Berkeley from approximately 1970 to 1970, 73 or 74, something like that. I can't remember exactly. But Swami Swananda.
And then what we
Sadhus that want to go in meditation, and they say the translation of your meditation will be tested in your karma yoga. How affected is your ego? As you're doing things, does it? I'll give you an example of one story. This is an extreme story. Often when we do something, we need to have credit for it. Even if we say we don't want to get credit, still in the back of our mind, we get jealous if we don't. So in the back of the mind, there was one Swami. His name was Ram Maharaj. He was an unknown hidden yogi that I had an opportunity to meet, and he was very brilliant, very smart. But he was in our retirement home, and nobody knew what a brilliant he was. And they asked him to do this Jivan Vivek Mukti. Is that the one? Do you know the one I'm talking about? Jivan Vivek Mukti, a translation of this book. So he wrote it. He wrote this translation, and then he left it. He was transferred from Narendrapur to Bellarmont, and as he's going, he left the transcript in the Prabhupada Bharata office in Udbatan, not Udbatan. What's that? The Advaita Ashrama office. So then it remained in somebody's desk for 8 years. He didn't care. He left it completely off. Then he went, and then somehow later it got published. And then when it got published, the editor who edited that writing made a lot of mistakes in editing it. And then the reviews came. And he told me when the reviews came, all of a sudden, all these negative reviews were towards him. And he's telling me this story. He's laughing. He's saying, all these negative letters are coming. I didn't know. I didn't even know it was published. And then he goes, and I didn't even write any of this. And the way he was saying, he was just laughing. Oh, the editor made these mistakes. But then they're blaming me. And he says, and he was like completely detached as he was telling me this. And he was just laughing. Isn't it funny how the world is? And this is Ram Maharaj. He's such a great one. I want to tell you another story as I remember. There's another Swami Krishnananda, American Swami who was the Sevak and attendant Swami Prabhavananda. And so he passed away in the 1990s. But he was the attendant of Swami Prabhavananda, who passed away in 1976. So Swami Krishnananda came from a multi-millionaire family in the New England area. He went to Harvard. He was in Harvard MBA. In the 1940s or 50s, he graduated, and then he met Swami Prabhavananda, and he joined. Such was the case that whatever he did in complete silence. So whenever he would do, such a great Swami, he would do the dishes in Hollywood. If you ever go to Hollywood, you see there's a lot of people that eat, and then a lot of people just leave their dishes there, and then they just go away. And so that Swami would wash all the dishes, and then not only would he wash all the dishes, he would rinse them, and then he would dry them, and then put them away. He did all of this, and we're talking about 12, 15 people would eat dishes. And then somebody told me, you see why he did that. He was a true karma. Our karma yogi doesn't require any ahankara. And what a karma yogi does is to eliminate all egotism. They eliminate their thumbprints, their fingerprints. So when people used to come, they used to say, oh, there's no dishes to be washed afterwards. Okay, then they would walk away. Nobody knew it was him. He would come in the middle of the night to wash all the dishes, to dry them, and then put them away and not be seen by anybody. So karma yoga here is doing the work, but then also wiping away any fingerprints that may give you, that may allow any exposure that you were there. He completely was completely, did not have his ego taken. He was the one, we have credit, he took so many photographs of Swami Prabhupada. And then if you try to take his photograph, they say, I didn't hear, but they say, unless he wanted you, his image would not come out. He had some yogic power like this.
Wow.
So that was Swami, an American Swami, Swami Krishnanandaji. So anyways, this is a karma yoga. Remember, in San Diego, we had a devotee from a European devotee. She was a disciple of Swami Prabhavanandaji. She had been coming since the 1950s. And she was married to a husband who, an American man who did not like her going to the temple. So whenever she could get away, when her husband was away, she would go to the temple and she would be with Swami Prabhavananda. So she went on this way until her husband passed away. And her husband passed away in the 1980s. She was at that age about 75 years old. And at that point, she decided, now, I've been living a worldly life. And my life has also been, you know, I've lived in the world. She was very much into fashion. She was very much also into good quality things. But then at 75, she said, I have a choice now. I can either go to yoga or I can go to boga. And she said, I made a decision, I'm going to go to yoga. What did that translate as? So at then 75, she says, no more newspaper, no more TV, no more radio. I'm going to devote myself completely to God. And by doing this, within 10 years, what happened was she started developing the mantra. She started chanting the mantra. Two practices she did. Chanting the mantra and practicing the presence of God from Brother Lawrence. So wherever she was doing, she'd feel the presence of, say, Holy Mother there. And while she was eating, she'd feel like Mother is seated with her. So with these two practices of japam and practicing the presence of God, somehow, some way, this mantra, called mantra chant, the mantra became awakened. And when it became awakened, she found then she did not have to make effort to chant the mantra. The mantra was coming spontaneously in her mind, like a sort of like we hear a radio or something, and then the song continuously goes in her mind. So now the mantra is continuously going in her mind all the time. And then she talked about then Holy Mother started becoming real. The imagination, the visualization started to becoming actual vision. And she started experiencing Mother's presence, the reality of Mother. And so, and then this went on, and then eventually she became a saint. There's one interesting thing also. Swami Ritajananda, Swami saw, she was in Europe, and she had desire to go to India. And Swami Ritajananda told her, no, you do not go to India. India will come to you. And she felt very hurt. She didn't understand why she couldn't go to India, what Swami had meant. At the end of her life, what happened was then we videotaped her life story in San Diego, and then somehow Swami Tathagata Maharaj in New York really loved her, showed her life story in New York. That was picked up by a Hyderabad ashram. That was picked up by a devotee in Hyderabad. The video was taken to Hyderabad. It was shown in the Hyderabad ashram. Devotees then saw this. Women, Indian women, young girls started writing to Mother Clemmy through our San Diego email, asking her for her advice. A president of a pharmaceutical company came to San Diego just to meet her, said, I will pay for any expenses for the rest of your life. Swamis like from Divyananda, from Sardapit, different Swamis coming to India, come to San Diego. They went to see her at her house. She became the saint of San Diego. And this was a European woman who then took spirituality at 75 years of age, seriously, and became a saint. And it was just, so what it means is it gives us hope at whatever age we are. Once we decide to make a sankalpa, once we decide that now is the time I feel I'm going to give myself completely to God, at that point, the divine will enter into us. So what they used to say, Thakur is in the heart waiting, waiting, waiting. Where art thou? Where are my devotees? He's pacing back and forth. He used to pace back and forth in the building. Where are my devotees? Where are my devotees? So he's always there. He's always unconditional in his love, no matter what you've done. He's saying, once you turn your attention to him, then he'll reach out to you. So it gives us all hope. And this is happening in the Hollywood ashram. And there's a song, Ramakrishna Sharanam, was going on in the background here. And he's, again, about 85 years old, and he's dancing. And you just see the way he moves, very sweetly. one of our nuns, Vrajaprana, in Santa Barbara, was very close to the Swami. And she was told by him that she said that he was taught to dance by someone who saw Ramakrishna dance. He was taught to dance by someone who saw Ramakrishna dance. So by watching him, we get a little glimpse of what maybe it would have been like when Ramakrishna would hear the kirtans and then he would be dancing in this way. You want to sing a little bit? Ramakrishna Harinam?
Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye. Sharanagatam, Sharanagatam, Sharanagatam Sharanye. Sharanagatam, Sharanagatam, Sharanagatam Sharanye. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye. Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namo. Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namo. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye. Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna, Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna, 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 Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye.
In a nutshell, basically,
Why nutshell, Maharaj?
yeah, somewhat of a nutshell. I've grown up in a Vedanta family. So my parents in Hollywood are very much close to the center, and they're very close to Swami Shwanaji Maharaj. So, in fact, because they're the closest sort of Bengali family, so and our monks and nuns didn't know how to cook Indian food. So during that time, so we knew Swamiji since 1980. So I was just a little boy at that time, and I used to know him at that time. But so all the Swamis would come to our house, my parents' house there, and then they would cook, and there'd be some satsang there going on like this. So I used to meet sometimes. I got a very severe scolding by, do you know Swami Tathagataji Maharaj?
Yes.
New York. Yeah. He came to our house, and I was in junior high, I think, and I was sitting next to him there, and there's like few Indian families that were also invited. And then my dad was poking me, ask him a question. Like, I don't know what to ask him. I don't want to ask him a question. Ask him a question. So then I said, okay, Maharaj, I heard you were an economics student in college. Is that true? And then he ripped into me. Why are you thinking about economics? Why did you think about Swami Vivekananda? And for 5 minutes he starts shouting at me. My brother's on the opposite side of me. He's laughing the whole time. And then I'm looking at my father, and my father, I'm like, this is all your fault. I'm thinking in the back of my head, I didn't want to ask Swami a question. And all the Indian families are silent. Okay? So this is my exposure to Vedanta. And actually what happened when I was a kid, I used to go, I had to go to the lecture, two things. I had to go to 11 o'clock lecture in Hollywood, and then my parents made us go to ISKCON, Harinamananda, the evening arti. That was my whole Sunday. And I used to play sports, so Sundays are days when baseball, basketball things are, and we have to miss that. So it was difficult. And I would sleep through all the lectures as a kid. In Vedanta, we're not kid friendly. So we don't have anything for kids, so you just go there, put your back away, and just sleep once a time. So somehow this was how I grew up in that. But then when I went away to college, that's the first experience then, when you're away from home, sort of the meaning of life comes to you. What is the meaning and purpose of life? And so at that time, I was searching for what is the meaning of why I'm here. And I started searching for spirituality, and there was another experience. I was feeling some kind of void in my heart, a void that nothing can fill. There's no. I come from a fairly wealthy family, so you can have everything you want, but there's still nothing that can satisfy your heart. So no person, no thing. So always what's the meaning? And all my friends are going to, you're in your pre-med route, you're studying things like this, and my other friends, they go to medical school, they go to trophy wife, things like this, but that wasn't something. And so then I used to go to ask about religion, searching, and I lived in a suite with 3 roommates. One was an American, Christian, the other was Palestinian, Muslim, and then the other was Japanese, Buddhist. All 3 living in the same suite. So it was that time then I started thinking, what's the meaning? And I went with my Christian roommate to his church, and I used to study the Bible study class. I used to participate in the Bible study classes. But the one thing that they wanted me to get baptized, and I didn't like to be forced to do anything. And then the other thing that didn't strike right with me was that Christ is the only way, and the only way to salvation. That also did not resonate with me. Then I used to go to my Muslim roommate, and so we used to talk about, he used to tell me about Islam, and I went to the mosque with him once or twice, but the only thing then again, he said, unless you have the Quran on the day of the death, Allah is going to take you by the head of your hair and throw you down to hell if you don't have the Quran in your hand. So that also felt like very restrictive. And the Japanese roommate, we talked about Buddhism a little bit, and that seemed much more open. But then it was at the time that my father had given me a little book on Sri Ramakrishna's life. And then there was that passage of Ramakrishna, Ekam Sat Vipa Bahuda Vadanti. Truth is one. Sages call it by various names. And then that resonated really well with me. That all of these religions are ultimately leading to the same truth. And then out of my own free will, I had gone to University of California in Davis area. Then I went to the Vedanta temple, just to see. And at that time, there was a visiting Swami lecturing. I think that was Swami Lokeshwanarshi. And in that lecture, something striking, the way he said it. He said, "You are God." He said this. He said, and the way he was speaking, I felt he was speaking directly to me. And then I was thinking, I am? Yes, he said, yes, you are. I thought he was speaking to me. So that then struck another nerve. So then it was from that point on, I started going. The other thing then, I started meeting Swami Shraddhanand, that Swami that you saw dancing. And one of the things I noticed with Swami Shraddhanand, he was always a Swami sort of in joy. There's also another Swami Pramadhanandji. He went to Canada afterwards. So Swami Shraddhanandji was always in joy. And I used to see the world, I was very observant of the world at the time. I used to see that, something about Swami Shraddhanand was different from others. I'd go exercise in the gym. And then I noticed one day I was up there at the Stairmasters doing Stairmasters, and then I noticed one young guy, fraternity guy, all of a sudden he's working out, a young woman passes by. and he stops working out, and his whole attention is towards the young woman. And then she keeps walking. And then she walks all the way to the other side of the gym. The other side, there's an old man, 85 years old, and he's doing some work. All of a sudden he comes by, he stops, and he's like, stares like that. And I think, my gosh, am I going to be controlled by the world? Am I ever going to have any control of my own self? And I noticed that everybody always needed something to get them happiness. But when I went to Swami Shraddhananda, he was like a geyser. He was like a geyser where joy was coming out from almost like his head, and if you were in his sphere, somewhat of a circumference within him, you would also feel joy. And not only joy, you would also feel fullness. So then if you had any problems, and sometimes we have to go to school, you feel he's open, I can ask him. When I come into his presence and I have a question, all of a sudden my question is going away. And I ask, what's the question? I don't know. So I used to say the problems don't get solved, they get resolved. Being in the presence, quiet your mind. They just make you feel another aspect of yourself that you never knew was there. So then from that, then I went on my journey. And then I met then Swami Swami told me before I went to get my master's, I was getting my master's, I was then living partially in the Hollywood Monastery. And then after graduating, I was thinking that I wanted to join, and Swami told me, before you join, you have to make sure this is right for you. Because you're an Indian, no Indian American has ever joined from here, was born here, and has joined there. So you better make sure this is right. So go to India, serve India. So then he told me, so I was in the Institute of Culture. I studied for about 6 months Indian philosophy over there. And then for another about 10 months to 1 year, I went to a village called Narendrapur. They have these Gram Shiva, worked with the villagers. And so I was from Narendrapur, I used to work at these different villages, taking what's called child progress reports, CPR reports. And you go interview different families with the help of a social worker. And so I'd interview a family, and in that family, you ask how the child is progressing, how the family's progressing, because we'd write reports and then send them to their donors. So individually, you pay $15 a month to, say, some foundation, and you're sponsoring a specific family. How is that money being used? So through that process, I had also another adventures. I would see, I'll give you one thing I remember. There was a young kid, if you remember Ramakrishna's life, at the age of 5, he didn't like school. Okay, so he was so much God intoxicated, school was not, he didn't like to read, he didn't like to write, although he could read and write. Okay, you saw anybody see his writing?
Yes, not in Shikkadebe.
No, not, yeah, that one. But you never, it just remind me, I have a little clip of his writing, okay, I can show you his beautiful writing. He's artistic. Sometimes you get the idea that Ramakrishna was illiterate. He wasn't illiterate, okay? So, and he could write. But, so there's this one kid in the village, he was 7 years old, he was not doing well in school, but he had some quality where he chanted the name of Shiva. And every Tuesday and Saturday, something like this, he would go and chant the name of Shiva, and then he gets into some bhav, and he becomes Shiva. And so this is strange to me. I'm here going this, and I don't believe any of this. And what was happening, he was becoming very famous in that village. People from the villages were coming to him. My son ran away, I don't know where he is. He's telling them when he's in that bhav state, your son is this area, proving right. This person's coming, they need medical help or they need sick, that you take this thing. So he gets into some bhav, he becomes some different person. I mean, I don't know, Ramakrishna used to say there's two in me. There's Divine Mother and there's devotee. So he would go, so then I thought, oh, Thakur said he's going to reincarnate in 150 years in some village. And then I remembered, oh, I think I've discovered Thakur. So I took this, and then this Swami Lakeshwaranji I told you about. So one day I went to Institute of Culture, I go, Maharaj, Thakur Bolachan this, he said that he'll come back in his reincarnation. Is this true? Well, yes, he said this, but what are we to know? Maharaj, I think I found him. You know, what? I think I found him. He's like, oh, okay, think whatever you want. And I was thinking, I'm going to be the next M.
Yeah.
I ended up, I'm going to have to take the diaries of this boy. So, anyways, that eventually that incident, it was just, I heard all stories, very different. He used to go to sheep temples, and this old man would be there, and as he's walking, a little 2-year-old boy would be doing circumambulations around the 8-year-old boy, and the 8-year-old boy's, he's chanting Shiva's name all the time, and they do this thing, and he gets into Bob, and so at some point, it's a little bit, you hear all these incredible stories, but I don't know what happened to him, and I don't know if it's true or not. So, but then it was there also that I had the experience that I met some, I was interested in spirituality, and who the spiritual people were in the village. And then they told me that these 2 women, this one woman, grandmother type, illiterate, doesn't read right, but used to sing about Krishna and does puja. And so she would do puja every day, and she would experience something that Krishna was accepting her things. She would see Krishna all over. And the way she talked, when I went to interview her, to meet her, talk to her, my Bengali is a little bit broken. It was better at that time, so somebody would sometimes help me. But they were in villages, they're very simple, so it's easy to understand that Bengali. And the way she described, she had such gyan, such knowledge, that only like a sage would talk. And she was talking from experience, not from reading any books. She didn't quote any scriptures, but from her own experience, I can tally with the scriptures. And so it's just another avenue I was seeing that it doesn't matter how, you don't have to be literate to be able to experience the divine. You don't have to read anything to experience the divine. It's through her complete devotion that she'd serve, and she'd see bees coming as Krishna and Radha, playing around, taking the prasad she had offered, and then going away. She'd have these facts, but it was more than that. And then I'd also see another thing. In the villages I was at in Natagachi, one of the problems was drinking, mat, alcohol. And so I remember that sometimes the men become alcoholic and they start beating their wives. So this one woman, she was telling me she used to do puja all the time. And why? I said, what is your God doing for you? I was being very frank. What is your God doing for you if the husband is beating? He used to beat me. But then as I was doing puja, not Thakur, but Bhagwan gave me strength. And then I feel such strength. So then when he started beating me again, I came out and said, you're going to hit me? And she started hitting her up. And she chased the husband outside, and he ran away, and he never beat her again. It was just interesting how the connection with the divine, you tap into this, there's tremendous strength, tremendous power, tremendous devotion. And so all this was just working in the inner workings of my mind. And then what happened was, I remember that when I was in Gold Park, the first day I went there, for some reason they had the idea that I was going to join then and there. And so I was moved in with the monks. I was living with the monks, and I thought, oh, this is so nice. They're giving first-class treatment, right? I'm just a boy. I come out from America. I'm here, and I'm living with the monks. And they're like, then I knew something was strange. They started asking me, what is your size? And my size is like this size. And so all of a sudden, I had a tailor. Why are they doing this? And then Lokeshwar Maharaj said, I would have come receive you at the airport myself if I wasn't this big Swami would come. What? Why, Maharaj? I'm just coming here. And then I found out as a brahmachari. But I wasn't ready to join. I was coming for the 1-year experience. And then all of a sudden, I called my dad. Dad, I think I'm going to join. What can I do? I don't care about Such first class treatment. Everybody's treating me so nicely. I'm such in the high, and then all of a sudden, how do I tell? So then I told him, Raj, I think there's some miscommunication. I think I may join, but I'm not joining yet. Okay, Tika Jay, okay, very good. So then eventually, the next day, my room gets shifted out of the monastery.
So that late people say.
And then I got my dining rooms becomes downstairs. But through all of that, I tell you one thing. That 1 year, I had the experience of being with Swami Lokeshwar. Wherever he traveled, I traveled with the Cherrapunji to Guwahati. I had chance to travel with him all over Kolkata. Every morning I used to walk with him. Every morning I used to get a hug from him. remember I was telling you Indians don't have, but he's this type. So I used to come in and Maharaj make my pranams, and then he'd give me this bear hug like this. And there are things that he used to say sometimes personally. Such a combination of bhakti and jnana. And the other thing I remember, he had such a way. He was such a highly spiritual soul, but he had a way of communicating with everybody. He touched everybody's heart. So even the workers in Gold Park at that time, there used to be a lot of strikes going against the management there. When he came in, the strikes stopped at that point. And when I asked why people sometimes, they put things, paper clips, and they're going to give him the papers, and the workers saw it's a rusty paper clip. He would change the paper clip. And also the way they clean your rooms. I said, what inspires you to do all this? He said, Boro Maharaj, meaning the big Swami, Lokesharanji. His love, he saw it didn't matter if you were sadhu, didn't matter if you're devotee, or you're the worker. Everybody was samadarshan. He saw everybody equally because the way he treated people. That was one of the things that opened my eyes. He would treat the workers with the same dignity that he would with the Swamis. So that when the workers brought their children, give them something to drink, give them some Coca-Cola. The same thing he would do to anybody else. This was him. He was another inspiration in my life. Then the last one I'll pick. In living in Gold Park, I had a chance to also have opportunity to meet another Swami who I call Dadu Sadhu, meaning grandfather Sadhu. His name was Swami Akuntanandaji. Swami Akuntananda was the grandson to Bolaram Bosch. Now, if anybody know Bolaram Bosch, how many have been to Bolaram Bosch's house? Bolaram Mandir. Okay, so Bolaram Bosch, Ramakrishna considered that was his second home. And they say he went there over 100 times. And that's where Swami Brahmananda had passed away. So Swami Akuntananda, he was 85 or 84 when I knew him at that time. He was born in Bolaram Bosch's house. And then he was the playmate to who? To Swami Brahmananda, Raja Maharaj. Raja Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda, used to stay in Bolaram Bosch's house, especially when Swami Vivekananda used to come. He would get, in one sense, a little bit scared of Swami Vivekananda, and he'd come to Bolaram Bosch's house. And then eventually, Bolaram Bosch's house was the place where he was staying most often. And so, because he was there, and he was Swami Akuntananda, as a 6-7-year-old child, he had free access to wherever he wanted to go. So Swami Brahmananda's sevak was Swami Nirvanananda. Who was the sevak of Swami? Anybody know?
I think Nirvana.
Nirvananandji. So he was a sevak. So what this Swami Akuntanandaji would do as a little boy, Swami Nirvana, no one can go see Raja Maharaj. He said, no, this is my house. He'd go under his dhoti to go see Raja Maharaj. And then he'd go with him to start and Swami Brahmanandaji liked children. Because the egolessness, he just wanted to be. He liked the child nature of the children there. So he played games with them like this. So he got that, and so that was his. And he sat in Holy Mother's lap, Swami Akuntananda, and met 10 of the 16 direct disciples. And he was living in Gold Park, but nobody really knew his valley. Nobody really came to see him. So I had him all to myself. Your Swami Sarvadevananda, he was known, that's why nobody came, because he was known as the tough Swami. Swami Masanji was, when he was secretary, was a really tough Swami. But then, if you're a bad brahmachari, Swami Masanji would send you to Swami Akuntananda to get scolded at, to get ship-shaped. And so that's why he had this reputation. Even Swami Sarvadevananda told me that he had to work for Swami Sarvadevananda worked under him to get Chikra cooling ground, Raja Maharaj's place. And it was very austere. He used to get shouted at and all these things. So I felt what happened. Swami Sarvadevananda wrote a note, look after this boy. So because of him, his grace, all the love that Swami Sarvadevananda didn't get, he was giving to me. Because he was remembering, I treated him really harshly. Let me make it up to you. So that was so these two Swamis, and Swami Akuntananda, 85 years old, 86 years old, was one of our most austere monks. He used to take the bus to Seva Pradishtan from Gold Park. He would always leave toothpaste. He'd repair his chappals. There's a different generation type, like your Swami Aseshananji. So they would never spend, and he was an advocate. So he studied law. He was the lawyer of our Belmont Center. That's why he was in the legal work. He used to get this. I'll give you another thing I remember. So I was very close to him, then I left. That was back in 96. 96. Then he passed away in 98. And then his sevak had told me, when he passed away, one thing Swami Akuntananda told me, he told me himself, he said, you know, I've been with these Swamis, I've been with such holy company, but I myself have never got any vision. I myself have never experienced any vision of the divine. So he used to tell me that. He told me, he said like in a sort of a sad way. So then I heard from his sevak that 2 days before he passed away, he had the vision of Swami Brahmananda. That Swami was coming to get him. So he had this profound vision. Then the next day, he made arrangements. He gave all his court cases back to Belmont. And then he made arrangements for his sevak. His Swami sevak, was with him for many years, so he wanted to make arrangements what will happen to him if he were to leave. And then on the day that he passed away, he had lunch in Gold Park. He sat up, he looked at the photographs of Thakur Mother and Swamiji, and then he just keeled over. So, what does this tell us? It tells us that Sarvadevananji then gave an analogy to help clarify this thing, this experience, that no matter where we are, it doesn't matter. Divine grace can always happen. And actually Swami told me this, Sarvadevananji gave this example. He said, if you get on a train, if you get come into spiritual life, some of us will have the aisle seat. Some of us will have the window seat. People who have the window seat may experience various types of vision. It depends on your mindset. The Gyanis usually don't get visions, they usually get more conviction in the truth. The Bhaktas usually get more devotion. The Yogis usually have a mystical mind, and they see more of this type of mystical visions. But it doesn't matter. You get on the train, you have a window seat or aisle seat, the train moves. So you're moving along, whether you know it or not. Then the people who have visions, sometimes the train will stop off at a certain place, and the person who has a vision may want to get off the train and see that. Usually sometimes we have a vision of some sort, then we want to tell others about that. We want to tell everybody about that. Look, I had this experience. Look at this. You know, I don't want to tell anybody, like an open secret. I'm telling you, but don't tell anybody else, but then I'll tell everybody else, okay? So sometimes this happens like this, and then what happens? We get stuck in that plane. We get stuck in that station. The person in the aisle seat, is still doing their japa, doing their meditation. They're not having any experiences, but they're still on the train. And eventually the train gets to its destination. This was Swami Akuntananji's life. So it gives us hope for those of us that don't have sometimes those mystical vision. The idea is that keep doing what you're doing. Keep staying on the train. Have that shraddha, have that faith. Know at the end that when you're passing away, there's many types of passing away I've heard of from different we hear from the lives of devotees, from others, how their passing away was, how they left this body, and that itself is an accomplishment. So to get back to your question, why did I join? All of this was occurring until eventually, then the end of this, I came back, and then I eventually joined in our Hollywood ashram, and I was under then Swami Swahananda's attendant for many years, and I've gone to Belmont for training. They have a training center there, so that was another experience. You know, sort of going in India. How do they teach you to swim? They throw you in the water. Only villagers can know to swim. City people don't know how to swim. So if you're a villager, you're thrown in the water. So like this, you're thrown into circumstances and situations in the training center, where you have all types of monks. Half of them are Bengali, then half of them are usually non-Bengalis from the north and the south. So I used to find, you know who my companions were? The ones from the south, especially Tamil Nadu. Why? Because their Sanskrit was not good. Tamil is different from any other language. So they also had to struggle in learning this in the scripture. So we were both all struggling in that boat together. So
the American and the Tamil.
Yeah, we were in that.
We have hope.
Yeah, so we were together, but I found that. Yeah, and because they also their they had to adjust to Bengali culture.
Yeah, yeah.
So in that adjustment is completely, I used to say India is like Europe. Each state is a different culture, is a different language. You cannot, what is India? So, you know, in retrospect, I remember the whole process joining was being born here, raised here. Ultimately, and I wanted to know, who am I? And that went from my cultural roots. So in searching for my cultural roots, eventually it went to my spiritual roots. And that's how I...
This is, now you have answered.
Yeah, so that essentially is how I
That
ended up
was,
there.
yeah. So, okay, so let me, so your parents, it seems to me from what you're saying, are quite supportive of you joining.
Yeah, they're unusual parents. I've seen parents in all over the in India and there and everywhere, but I have unusual parents. Yeah, they're not usual.
So now, okay.
No, no, you are.
This is my last question.
No, don't worry about it. It could be the last, but one also. Go ahead.
So, but maybe this you won't answer, but anyway, so if suppose you grew up in India, and in India, I don't know what's going on now, but usually you are surrounded by spirituality in
Right.
some shape or form.
Right.
It is not as difficult
Right.
as in this country.
Right.
And maybe even if your own parents are not spiritual,
Right.
there are temples everywhere, and there are people.
Yeah.
I mean, so you think that the desire would be so strong?
So, what I've noticed is this, my puny observation is that the Indians who come here from India, that come to America, I noticed one thing, that sometimes they become spiritual after they come. They didn't go to the temples while they were in India.
That's true.
It's so when they get separated from that, then there's some yearning or desire. When you're inundated in that culture, you don't have that. One of the things about me, remember, I grew up with all Americans. I didn't grow up with any Indians. I was the only Indian in my school in West LA. So I didn't associate with any Indians. Because I always had to mix with the African Americans, the Latinos, the Americans, white Americans, with all different cultures. I never had really an identity of being Indian. Okay, so that was also, so then there's a yearning to know who you are. So that being an outsider, and that's always been my struggle. Even if I go to India itself, you know, the way Sadhus will treat me, the way I act, the way I am, they'll treat you as an outsider also. So unless they're mature sadhus, so the people I end up yearning to associate with were these very senior Swamis who are very mature, who could see you as you are and accept you as you are. Lokesh and I'm mentioning all these highly evolved, so because that's who I found, who I can be free with, and they accept you, and they see your own limitations, and they accept as you are. So that's how all of this came. So to answer your question, if I was inundated in this, I don't know. Then it's just common. We don't yearn because I was an outsider, because I didn't know any of this. I wanted to find out. That was the difference that I for me at least.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that when you met Swami Shraddhananda, you had this feeling of peace that that came over you. So I was just wondering, is there anyone else who's alive at the moment that you've had a similar experience with?
Yeah. So there's these various types of senior swamis. Different experiences with different people. But Swami Lokeshwarananji Maharaj, and then it depends who you're. Swami Shwahananji Maharaj. If you've ever been here, I'll give you an example. When we're in Hollywood, we close our eyes for meditation. There's something when he comes through the back door. We don't hear. But what we do is you feel like as he's coming, he's walking to the shrine, and you're sitting down. There's like a presence, and as you're sitting down, you're sitting there. You don't know he's behind, but you feel like you're in the ocean, and all of a sudden the ocean raises up. You sort of raise up and then come back down. There's a presence that you feel that you're in that presence, and you raise, and then he keeps walking, and then you come back down there. I mean, everybody, there's different people, different experiences. So yeah, it's different people come at different times in your life, and they give you different different things that you need along the way. Yeah.
Maharaj, this resonates so much with our son's experience. Our oldest son knew Swami Swahananda from here.
Yeah.
And of course they were initiated also. But nothing happened after that. He went to Carnegie Mellon, went to work for Microsoft and all of that. Swami Swahananda was visiting Seattle. And so he heard through a friend that his guru, that guy's guru, this great Swami is visiting. He said, who's Swami Swami? He said, I know. Anyway, so he goes and he says that, and that was from a very modern kid. I mean, he's not doing anything with Thakur any day. I mean, he was initiated and after 8, 10 years have passed. But he said, I entered the monastery and then I could feel, and he's not saying anything, he's just sitting and smiling, and others are talking everything. He means Swami Swahananda. But the whole house was full of this awe and purity, and a sort of very high spiritual vibe. And he's not a kid who is already ready to be totally immersed into God. Actually, he's totally opposite.
Right.
So then I heard that, and since then we have also seen that Swami Swahananda's being in a house changed that.
Change the atmosphere. It's true, but I've also seen, I had a good friend at Davis. He went on to become a doctor. He went with me in Berkeley to go visit Swami Harinamananda Maharaj. And so that friend who, when he walked into the temple, he had an allergic reaction to the temple. He was he wanted to become a doctor. He wanted to make money and all these. So sometimes you can go into and he couldn't. It was suffocation for him. So you have to be. So there's two things. There's the person has to. These are powerful gurus, but then you have to be somewhat receptive. Also, you have to be at that frequency in life. That now it could be small, but then that you're tuning into that frequency. Because no matter how powerful the signal is, if you're not tuned into that channel, it's not going to resonate. You're not going to pick up. So if I was much more spiritual, I could have received much more from these great souls. I'm only receiving the small capacity that I'm able to tune into. So that's why they say sometimes, how do you know that he's a realized soul? Well, to know he's a realized, you have to be a realized soul. So I used to see when Bhuteshananji and Lokeshananji were looking at each other, I used to feel it must be two God-realized souls looking at two knowers of God, seeing each other, and just acknowledging this, that they are this. So, yeah, it's so these holy people, they're not so. Not so much all over the place, but you meet a few who can really sort of transform your life if you are in tune. But it's not easy. Sometimes people say, "Oh, so you must be living with Swami Swahananda. It was really easy." No, I was talking with my brother. We were talking. It's one of the most painful experiences in my life, also.
But then people who are tuned, they still go on.
They still go on, yeah.
That's
It's rough to have your ego crushed. You have when Swami's hollering at me, my father and mother, along with 300 other people are there, yelling at you to do this. Why are you such a fool like this? And you have your own. It's one thing to be embarrassed in front of people you don't know. It's another thing to be embarrassed in people you know. And then if they're your parents, even more. Then it's like, then and then your face is all red, and how can you face? So it's very difficult. But this is the process. Sometimes they say it's chiseling. It's the machine. You have to get chiseled until the divinity. And some of us, we're much more, we have a lot more chiseling that needs to be done. It's like me. So others are more receptive. So
Swami Bhaskarananda says this joining the mutt is like joining this ego crushing machine.
Yeah, right.
Keeps on crushing your ego until it's fragmented.
Yes. I was telling someone that, I forget, was it yesterday? I forgot I told that. So my observation is this, that when I go to Belomat, I observe and I see the different sadhus, and because I have some type of little bit language barriers, or I tend to gravitate towards who I think are very sincere. And one thing I noticed sometimes, some of the sadhus, these young ones,
who had a blow early on in their sadhu life. They have some ego-crushing experience in their sadhu life. They went on to become saints. Somehow, even when joining, some people then, the idea everybody comes for God realization, but then somehow the ego creeps in and they may want some people, I want to be a Mahanta, in charge secretary of this place, or be a trustee. Sometimes there's an ego that crushes there. These ones who I noticed had some early blow in life, where then the whole order that looks negatively, some other people look negatively upon you, like that. Like that. Oh, what fool. Then you have nobody to turn to. Remember I told you about Holy Mother's Shrine? That it's filled with those newcomers? I also forgot to tell you, it's also filled with the misfits. I was telling this afternoon. No. If you look at, how many have been to Jairampati and to Kamarpukur? Jairampati, and then also Kamarpukur. Okay, so my observation was, when people come, people love to stay in Jairampati, which is Holy Mother's birthplace. But they go and visit Thakur, Kamarpukur, but they don't stay there. And then you look at the atmosphere of both places. I was telling you this morning that in Kamarpukur, in Sri Ramakrishna's place, if you notice the pujari, the singing, everything is done with absolute perfection. The way the puja is done, the way it's done on time, the singing, everything is meticulous, everything is done precisely. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, everything has a place, everything should be put in the proper place. So everything was just perfect. If you go to Jairampati, what do you notice? I was telling that if you went back in the 1990s and 2000, there was an old Swami, I think it was a disciple, a direct disciple. He used to do the puja. And then one day we're sitting for this arati, and he's got the chamra, he's waving the fan, and as he's waving the fan, a truck pulls up in front of the Jairampati temple. And so he sees the truck, and then he's in the middle of arati, he goes to the truck, hey, move, move like this. And he goes back, and then he starts doing the fan like this. And then the person singing the arati, he was an older Swami, and he was Mahapurush Maharaj's disciple, and then when he starts singing, he's going, Kandan, and you don't know when he's going to start, when he's going to begin. And then we were saying that all the misfits in our order, you have, 2,000 people? So within 2,000 people, think of it as a bell curve. So you're going to have your highly evolved souls, then you'll have, we have our middle, the average people, and then we have our sort of bottom average. Who's to say who's bottom average? But the ones that can't get along anywhere. So they go to this ashram, they can't get along. They go to this ashram, they can't get along. So where do they end up going? You ever wonder where they go? They end up coming to Jairampati. So all the misfits go to Jairampati. So go to Jairampati. Swami, who was there, Amayananji Maharaj was there, if you had gone during his time. They're like mothers. So they have all the misfits, they have everything, but a mother's heart, it means that she accepts all. And they feed everybody that comes there. Yeah. So that is so when you go there, you feel the sense of love, that she is my own. I belong to her. She belongs to me. And just love. It doesn't matter. Remember I said yesterday, you don't have to project anything. She accepts you as is. I don't have to act like I'm a good devotee, bad. I'm just who I am. She accepts as that. So then I was saying that if you ever go to, how many, you've been to Hollywood? People have been to Hollywood? Have you gone to San Francisco also? Anybody?
Yes.
So what I find, this is only my opinion. If you tell Swami Tattva Mainji, he'll probably say different. But my opinion is that San Francisco, when it was under Swami Prabhudananji, it has the effect of a very formality. If you go there, it's like everything is strict, everything is done properly, the food is nicely done, everything is in order. If you ever watch the chairs, all the chairs are aligned after puja, after lectures. I mean, there are ushers. Everything is organized. If you come to Hollywood, it's a completely different nature. I can show you a video when I have time. One Swami Amarnanji said, that our Hollywood Center, it's like Swami Swaji, he accepts anybody, all the misfits come to him. And so you'll go to Hollywood, who's a Swami, who's not a Swami, just like American, there's people speaking all over the place, people coming in at all times, all sorts of things are going on. It's only a place of mother. So we think Hollywood is mother's place, San Francisco is Thakur's place. So it depends. If you're more candy oriented, go to San Francisco. If you're more Bhakti oriented, go to Hollywood.
That's true. I mean, there is such a small restriction on dresses also.
Yeah.
So big sannyasis like, say,
Other Swamis, we dress in American clothes,
yeah.
but they never did. There's a very few that they also maintain their Indian. He maintained his Indian citizenship. He never got American citizenship. So there's something about that. What I'm saying is each one has a different expression. So and when finding our spiritual path, we have to find what resonates with us. So we have to do a lot of search to find out. Again, I go back to what is my swabhava? What is my inner nature? Because according to my inner nature, then I'll find what is my swadharma? What is my path? So sometimes we get general instructions, but then it's left to you to find out what is really. Am I more devotionally oriented, or am I more kind of like knowledge oriented? How do I see the world? Do I work in ideas? Do I see things as manifestation? Do I feel like everything is more happening within me? I am the Atman. I am the witness, and everything, this universe, is all happening within me. And there's a sense of detachment. Or do I feel much more devotional? Do I resonate with the music, with the kirtan? Do I find that I love relationship. I love to pray. I love to sing, and I love to show devotion. Is this my path? So we have to see what is our orientation, within that. Because it's up to us to find our own path. So, and then once you find more and more, then the guru can help you. The guru can then now that you're cleared up in this thing, now I can help you and accelerate your thing. That's why Thakur used to say sometimes, if you read the Gospel of Ramakrishna, he would say that when you get to the fourth chakra, so then at that point, what was the experiential? He has Etaki. You see light everywhere, light. And then you have some spiritual awakening. And when that spiritual awakening occurs, then you start to see then that you see the world in a different way. No longer do I identify I am meat. As long as I see meat, I'm going to see meat. As long as I'm body, I'm going to see bodies. When I think more in the ideational world, I see ideas. Then I see, oh, I love your ideas. Here, you're saying, when I feel now I'm more this light and spirit. Now I start to see spirit everywhere. And now, what path? The path of, every path is right, but it's more what is your inclination? I am more this, we could say, Aham Brahmas, I am that, or is it more, you are everything, I am nothing. Either you go to infinity, or you go to zero. Either that, with Nag Mahashai, was Vivekananda, not Vivekananda.
Yes, Mahamaya tried to bind.
No, says you become a devotee, and you say, I am nothing, God is everything. You make your ego so small, so when the net of Maya comes to get you, you go through the meshes of Maya. Or you expand your ego so large that you identify with everything, the cosmos, as Swamiji did. So when the net of Maya comes to get you, you're so big it can't get a hold of you. So this is what we have to discover here. So anyways, it's a fun journey.
Mundane thing. We're ready with